Hi, I'm here with Dave Koziera to talk about his views on global warming and climate change. How are you doing tonight, Dave?
Fine.
Dave, how do you feel about the notion of global warming, and what are your thoughts on the issue?
Well, I'm not sure it even exists. There's inconclusive evidence to suggest that perhaps global warming may not even be there, and in fact, the world might be experiencing global cooling. So I don't really feel like the data suggests that we do have global warming by looking at it. You can kind of skew data if you take a short-term time frame to say anything you want. If you look at a long-term perspective, the story would be a whole lot different.
And Dave, what do you think about all the media hype about going green? You know, you see it all the time now on billboards and the sides of buses and in advertisements. And, you know, as an advertiser, you're probably a bit more tuned into it than the rest of us. What do you think about all that media hype about going green?
Going green is a good thing generally, but people will only do it for the most part if it makes economic sense. So I think in order for it to be in its purest form, it should be market driven by the consumer, and it should not be something that would be regulated when the market is not ready for it nor desirous of it. If it makes economic sense, I'm all for it.
Okay, that kind of leads into our next question, actually. So I'm assuming then you think that the private sector and the consumer-driven market should take care of going green instead of the government forcing regulations on it. Why don't you like the idea of the government forcing regulations on the private sector to go green?
Well, I think for the most part, it makes the economy do something it wouldn't do otherwise, and it could be disruptive, and it would not lead to an efficient economy in terms of dollars being spent where they should be spent, etc. It would throw it out of kilter. It would unnecessarily harm people who it should not be harming, and unnecessarily help people who shouldn't be helped necessarily.
Dave, do you think it's right to blame ourselves as the United States of America for global warming, or do you think that others are to blame as well? You know, and from a historical standpoint as well, do you think possibly, you know, Great Britain and France during the Industrial Revolution could be to blame as well for the effects that we're experiencing today?
Well, first of all, I'm disputing the fact that perhaps global warming even exists, so that kind of knocks the question out of the park to begin with. If it indeed does exist, anybody who would have an industrial base would share in some of the responsibility for it. But we take a look around the world, and there are many developing countries that don't have the conscience that we have. For example, China, and we would need to look at them, and that since we have more regulation here, that forces costs on our products which other countries may not experience, like China, therefore giving them an unfair advantage in the marketplace, therefore leading to uncompetitiveness of U.S. companies and therefore loss of jobs. So if it exists, it should be something everybody takes a look at equally, and to put everybody on an equal footing and to have equal responsibility in this solution.
So that kind of also leads into our next question. Recently at Brother Rice High School, some juniors and seniors took part in a global debate, and the subject of the debate was whether developed countries or developing countries should take a greater share in the burden of combating climate change. What's your opinion on that matter? Should developed countries like the United States and Great Britain take the bigger role, or developing countries such as China and a lot of countries in Africa?
Well, I think that if it exists and if it needs to be taken a look at, I think that each country should be contributing based on its ability to pay and or take care of the issue. Developing countries, and I mean that in the aggregate sense. I mean, you might say China's a developing country and therefore perhaps should not have a share of it, but if you look at the sheer size of their GDP, I think they should look at it in terms of GDP size across the countries and then determine who should have it. I would say that somebody like a China should be paying more than somebody perhaps like India. But India should be paying more than perhaps Brazil. So you've got to take a look at the absolute size of the economy and gauge it from there. But I would not absolve developing countries, but I would look at it not in the sense of whether they're developing or not, but by the sheer size of the metrics of the GDP.
Some valuable insights there. Recent evidence, Dave, suggests that carbon dioxide and pollution may not be to blame for global warming or climate change in general, and that they actually might be helping against it because as they make plants hardier, the plants are actually able to absorb more carbon dioxide and combat climate change. What do you think about that idea, and will that translate into any changes in your lifestyle?
Man, I think I'll stop burping as much. Just kidding. I don't really think it would really affect my lifestyle. I think I would be prudent about my actions, and I don't really think that a lot of the naysayers and people who bear tidings of gloom don't really impact how I would act.
Thank you, Dave. It's been a very insightful interview. Looked forward to talking to you again.
Thanks.